everyone, Assalamualaikum, Salam Sejahtera. Hi everyone, how are you? Welcome everyone to the session. Thank you for sharing this
Hi.
valuable time to join the session. My name is Faiz. I will be your moderator for today. This is one of the early webinar session and the second session for today, brought to you by National Competitiveness Group, NPC. Before I move on, I would like to show you how the session works. This is a 1 hour session. In today's program, it will be divided into two sessions, which we call the talk and the Q&A session. But in between the session, the audience are allowed to ask the question. For your information, everyone here is under mute mode. So how to ask the question? You can type the question in the question box in your apps at the bottom of your screen. Be sure to type in the question box, not in the chat box. So I will read your question throughout the session. Okay, good news again for today. There is a giveaway for all of you that joined this session. Everyone who joined this session today will be given a certificate of attendance by NPC. But there is a but. You have to join us until the end of the session. At the end of the session, we will provide you a link in the chat box. Just click the link, fill up the form, and they will email the certificate to you afterwards. I will remind you again at the end of the session. Okay, we move on to our today's session. On the topic of the Great Reset, Human Capital Strategy. For several years before the crisis, skills mismatches, talent shortages, and increasing misalignment between incentive and rewards for workers had been flagged as a problematic and advancing productivity, prosperity, and inclusion. Because of the pandemic and subsequent alteration of the technology adoption, these challenges has become even more pronounced and compounded further by permanent and temporary losses of employment and income. To address these issues, countries should focus in revival phase of gradually transitioning from follow-up schemes to new labor market opportunities, scaling up reskilling and upscaling programs, and rethinking active labor market policies. In the transformation phase, leaders should work to update education curricula and expand investment in the skills needed for the job in our markets of tomorrow, and in parallel rethink labor laws for a new economy and use new talent management technologies to adapt the new needs of workforce. Later on, let's join Mr. Lawrence Kong reveal the great reset of human capital strategy in global competitiveness post-COVID-19. Before I pass the session to our expert, I would like to share a little bit of our expert. Mr. Lawrence Kong is a certified Six Sigma Master Belt and Quality and Productivity Trainer for Next MU Private Limited, which is Motorola University, which he founded in 2011. He is an electrical and electronic engineer by practice. Prior to starting Next MU company, Lawrence has started his career in Motorola Electronics and worked there for 15 years before joining Motorola University External Training and Consulting Group as a Lean Six Sigma consultant. Almost his various position, Amongst his various positions he held in Motorola Electronics are reliability engineer, software quality engineer, manufacturing quality engineer, quality information system manager, compliance engineering manager, and Six Sigma Black Belt program manager. Lawrence has more than 20 years of extensive experience as a practitioner in teaching and sharing, project mentoring, coaching, and consulting to various multinational companies, embarking on business processes management and continuous improvement programs. In the last decade, he has been actively working with many small and medium enterprises in Singapore in various productivity, creativity, innovation, leadership, quality improvement, and continuous improvement programs as a part of local government national productivity and innovation initiative in transforming the nation into highly productive and innovative workforce. He has provided consulting service in diverse industries and functions such as infocom, media design, logistics storage, electronics, precision engineering, general manufacturing, financial services, retail, food and beverages, administrative and support services, universities and academia. non-governmental organization, construction, hospitality, aviation services, laboratory testing services, and government. And academically, he possesses a master's in business administration from Swiss German Institute and Bachelor of Social Science Economics from USM. Without further ado, I would like to welcome our expert, Mr. Lawrence Kang. Hi, Mr. Lawrence, how are you?
Hi, Mr. Faiz. I'm good, thank you. Hope you're fine.
The stage
I
is yours,
think it is
Mr.
something about
Lawrence.
the. Sorry.
The stage is yours.
Oh, thank you. Um, Good afternoon, people. Welcome to this webinar session. I'll be sharing with you a bit about the human capital strategy. Maybe I should start introducing myself as hi, I am human capital. Hello, human capitals. We are all human capitals, by the way.
Yes,
This is not just one person, right? It's a collective. It's a collective brains of the resources we have from small, since young, how we acquire knowledge, what we know, how do we communicate with people, how do we think of ideas, how do we give solutions. Um, all this will facilitate our social, economical well-being. Um, I guess we don't really have to fully introduce what human capital is, but let's talk about human capital. Um, this term is already not new. Since 18th century, Adam Smith, the Scottish economist, already used this term. He believed that the economic activities was fueled not by workers as a collective mass. Yeah. It wasn't until 1960s the American economists actually talk about the individual's conscious investment in knowledge acquiring, right? So not only uh, for himself, but how he applies it at job. So this then refers to specific knowledge that he used for the job and common knowledge that he used between jobs. So the quality of human capital is crucial. Economists seem to believe that this is linked to economic growth. Yeah. So essentially, what the economists are saying is that a modern economy cannot grow without an educated workforce. And so you can see the definition by OECD. This is the same. Right? So we will be talking about people. We'll be talking about how we should pay attention to the people, especially around this time. The crisis that we face in the pandemic. So this is one of the categories in the Global Competitiveness Report published by WEF, the World Economic Forum. So we'll be exploring the recommendations of WEF in how a nation should move forward to revive and to transform our long-term economic growth by looking into the investment in our human capital. The human capital skills throughout our working lives. Let's probably hope that since we are born, right, how we acquire basic fundamental knowledge around the world, of the world, and how we slowly build it up through school, education, to training, to tertiary, to workforce, so that we can move into a knowledge worker category. So this is not only good for supporting the economic activities, but this also attracts investment from foreign investors into Malaysia. When we talk about the international trades, how the economy can be established between export and import, we need people, especially nowadays. The service industry is heavily relying on people. So without the knowledge intensive workforce, we cannot attract foreign investment. We also cannot export talent out of Malaysia.
Mr. Lawrence. Hi, Mr. Lawrence. Okay, I think we have a slight technical issue. So again, uh, please, participant, please wait until the end of the session. We'll be giving you the link at the chat box. At the end of the session, you can.
Okay, I'm back. I think just now there was some disruption in the network quality.
I was telling the participant to wait until the end of the session because there is a link, and then the link will bring you to the certificate that you requested. So just wait until the end. Okay, back to you, Mr. Lawrence.
Okay,
I think
okay.
it's better if the connection is not is a bit slow, can turn off your your video.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I
So,
think for now it's okay, still okay.
okay, all right. Maybe yeah. If the connection is going to be a problem afterwards, I'll try to turn off this bandwidth.
Okay.
I was talking about why human capital matters. Yeah, I was talking about the knowledge economy, how the brains are increasingly important in the age of globalization, where the national borders are no longer matter. People are free to move in and out of country borders. So the transfer of knowledge is getting more important. Right? So if we do not have the brains that we need, this will not resolve the mismatch between the supply and demand of the workforce. The human capital is now seen as knowledge capital, right? Because this is something that's intangible. Right? It's unlike the traditional factors for production in the economy: land, labor, capital, right? The hard assets. But nowadays we're talking about the intangible assets, where how the knowledge capital is using the information and how they are given information, how they get access to information, and how they make use of it to grow economy is increasingly important. If you look at the breakdown of the economy, service versus manufacturing. Service, of course, is now largely outgrow the contribution to the economy, and we know services relies more on human, right, than the hard asset itself. Now, if you look into the human capital and economic growth, the human capital skills is throughout our working life, right? So this is no doubt. We can't bridge this gap unless we can get our people to learn as much as we can. There's even a correlation done by economists to try to look into, how an additional year of education will reap return, right, to the economic growth. So even nowadays, it's a bit tricky for economists to try to measure how human capital development is contributing to the economy. But they have established a lot of relationships on factors, what factors are helping the economic growth from the human capital standpoint. So I'll be sharing with you the standing indicators afterwards, right? How human capital can be measured. But we can measure human capital from two ways, right? One from individual perspective, right? How the individual can be groomed, right, to have the able knowledge to serve, to grow the economy. And the other one is from the perspective of the national economy, right? Because all of this will increase earnings. Right? So this will contribute to GDP. Right? The higher the earnings, the higher the quality of living. But this also poses another challenge for our policymakers, especially in the education. Because to grow our human capital, we need education. So you can see this is one of the factors, right, in human capital. Nowadays, the education is also facing inflation, right? So especially in COVID pandemic time, we have economic recession. This price inflation is going to be hitting, people who are perhaps, like, say, reaching tertiary education. Because nowadays, if you look into the Malaysia tertiary education inflation, is sitting somewhere around 3%. right? Even though it's not as high compared to Singapore, it's around close to 4%. US is already surpassed 5%. But Malaysia itself, if you look into the earnings per capita, we are nowhere near those countries. So if our inflation percentage is very close to Singapore, what does it say? Those who are below the median earnings will be hit hard, right? So even though we know economists always, talk about how this investment in education will eventually pay for itself, but people in the B40 category will find it very difficult, right, to send their children to pursue education because of the inflation. So to measure the human capital is tricky, right? It's not as easy. Fortunately, the World Bank, they have a human capital project. Right? If you search on the internet, you see that this is in the second year in a running since 2018, when the human capital project was launched, and they now have 78 countries on board. Right, during this pandemic period, they are still working hard to collect data, right, to capture data from different countries to measure the levels of human capital development. So what I'm going to share with you is that the human capital level, how this has been computed and how this has been applied to comparison between economies, according, it is from the World Bank perspective. Yeah. The World Bank is using three broad categories to calculate the human capital index. Right? So with this index, it's just like any other measurement. With a single number, you can tell if an economy is reaching the level of competency of the human capital that they need. One is survival. Right? They talk about the probability of the share of children surviving past the age of 5. Right? So this can be measured using hard data. The second one is school, right? So this is using the quantity of education, how many years expected, of any individual from the age of 4, let's say, up to the age of 18. How many years on average the population will have gone through education. Another one is the quality of education. Right? So I think you probably heard about organizations like PISA. They are measuring teenagers, right, around the age of 15, whether they can read, they can write, they are doing good in science, mathematics, example. So World Bank is using harmonized test scores to measure the quality of education. So this is under school. The next is health. So health, there are two subcategories. One is the adult survival rates. This refers to the share of 15-year-olds who survive until 60, the percentage. And the other one is referring to the stunting rates of children under the age of 5. Now, stunting is a serious problem, right, around the world. Not only in Malaysia, some countries we are even seeing more serious stunting. This refers to malnourishment. This refers to undergrowth, underdevelopment of children, right? Because this will have effect on cognitive skills, this will have effect on development skills, and so on later in their life. Right? So by measuring these stunting rates, we will know if the human capital development is on par with the rest of the world. So let me show you the current baseline based on human capital index measured by the World Bank 2020. If you look at the index, 174 countries have been compared. Singapore, as usual, is sitting right on top. They are ranked first in all the countries. And there are countries that are ranked pretty much in the frontliners: South Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, UK, US, China, Vietnam. Right? So Malaysia is behind these countries, right? Ranked 55. We have room to grow, right? Even though we are not at the bottom, we are still relatively, in the median, but we have room to grow, right? So you can see in 2018, this is the score because they are using this to compare. 2020, World Bank also published the scores by country. I extracted the Human Capital Index performance of Malaysia. Let me share them with you. The child born in Malaysia today is around 61% as productive. So why 61? Why not 100%? Right? So again, we still have issues in the early growth, the early education for a child to fully attain the right education and full health. So this is still a problem, right? So this percentage, even though it's higher than the average of the East ASEAN and the Pacific region, even though we are increasing, right? So you can see from 2010 to 2020, we are improving, but still again, we are not on the upward quartile. You can see the individual value plots. The circle here represents Malaysia, right, in 2020. The SCI in 2010, 10 years ago, this is represented by the diamond shape, right? So the different colors represents the different quartiles, right, of the different countries' SCI measurement. And so of course, we want the higher the better. Now, if you look at the probability of survival to age 5, well, we are in the upper quartile, right? 99 of 100 children born in Malaysia survive to age 5. So this is not so much of a problem. Expected schools, years of school in Malaysia, assume a child to start school at age 4, will expect to complete around 4.5 years of school by her 18th birthday. So again, this is rather high in the spectrum of the measurement. So not so much of a problem. For the quality of school, the harmonized test score, again, this will be somewhere in the median, right? So yeah, so we can still move ahead and try to catch up. Learning adjusted years of school, this is the factor in which students are actually learning, expecting the number of years of school of the child. In this case, it's only 8.9 years. Adult survival rates, 88% of 15-year-old will survive until the age of 60. So this is looking at the probability of survival. Okay? This represents the main bulk of the distribution of the population here in Malaysia. The next one is the stunting rate. Right? If you look at the healthy growth, not stunting. Right? So this is about 80 out of 100 children not stunted. So that means around 1 in 5 children are still stunted. So what it means is that they are still at risk of not receiving the proper nutrition, not the proper health in a bring out environment, perhaps of economic reasons. These are the summary of how we fare according to the comparison around the economies. Right? So if you look into the spending, we have on education, we have on health, as a percentage of GDP, we are actually spending lower than the regional average. You can see across the spectrum, the percentage of spending in public health, education, government education, social assistance, even as a percentage of the general government revenue, these are all lower than the regional average. So if you look into the economies who are performing better, higher ranking, and so SCI measurement in Malaysia, some of the economies, in fact, spending more. They are making investment on education and health, especially in the early parts of the childhood, right, the preschool part. This is very important. So moving on the complementary indicators, I can see these are some of the family indicators, like the enrollment in school, parents who are not having health problems like diabetic, bad habits in lifestyle, because this will affect the health of the offspring, right? So these are complementary indicators to see how healthy we are as a nation, right? Overall, we are not low, in terms of the score, but again, we have room to improve.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes,
one question.
yes.
How do we know that the human capital development is successful? Any telltale signs?
Ooh, this is a hard question. I think you asked the right question on policymakers who want to see returns. If they want to make an
Yeah,
investment, what kind of returns would they get? So I mean,
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
signs of successful human capital development has to be there. But I guess human capital development is kind of like a lagging indicator, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Because to see this shift, you have to move a lot of indicators. Yeah, I'll be sharing with you some indicators that uh, have been shown to affect human capital development.
Mm-hmm.
So we can see how by improving, the leading indicators, we hope the lagging indicators can improve as well. There are effects of human capital development, like for example, how as an economy we can enjoy the economic growth,
Okay.
because these are all signs of human capital development. Even though this is not the only factor, I
Mm-hmm.
think it plays a big part. We probably will have to see from many dimensions. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Probably it's not a very easy question to answer, but I think this is a good question that I think
Not just dollars and
audience
cents,
should
right?
think about. Yeah,
It's not just dollars and cents.
it's not, but it definitely has impact to dollar and cents.
Yeah, okay.
It's just that we probably can't, lay our fingers directly and say, well, if you move this should be the way that it's going to move. It's not as simple as that.
Okay, okay.
Right? How do you measure the returns of a child?
Uh-huh, yeah.
I've heard parents saying, they have calculated how much they will have to put aside to raise a child to 18 years old,
But it's subjective.
including education.
Yeah.
How much can a child bring in after that? I mean,
We
this is
don't know.
something that
Yeah.
we can only hope and pray that this is
Yeah.
going to reap benefits in the end. But we know it well.
Yeah.
How do we know that it
Hopefully,
works?
hopefully it will.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
sometimes it doesn't work, right?
yeah. I think there are many telltale signs. There are many telltale signs. We need human capital to do a lot of things. If you look simply in the competitiveness areas, there's so many indicators that point to saying our country has improved. It also suggests that human capital is being invested right.
Okay. Thank you.
Chicken and egg.
Yeah,
Chicken
yeah,
and egg.
yeah. Chicken and egg.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have shown this this morning. This is just to show you again where we are in human capital and the indicators of human capital based on health and skills. Um, to put it visually, the human capital development based on these two areas, the big areas, health and skills. The health can be seen from the perspective of expectancy, life expectancies. So this starts as early as fertility rates. Then we can measure that to see if we, can replace population, because our mortality rates and fertility rates must be balanced. If it's not balanced, we do not have enough people to grow economic activities. Yeah, so if you look into the fertility rate, for example, it's declining. In Malaysia, you can see the chart since 1950s to what it is today. People are not really, wanting children, sad to say. But if you look into the truth, death rate in Malaysia, it's increasing. And this is not good. Actually, this is a problem. We are living longer and we are having fewer children. Simple fact. We have improved lifestyle, with improved health facilities. We can have a lot of good things in life that can keep us, living longer. But we're having fewer children. So what does it say? If we don't have enough human resources, we can't groom them. Yeah. From the social aspect, things like gender equality, things like equal opportunity, poverty level, probably you have seen these presentations by other consultants in other webinar series. All these are pointing to human capital development. Yeah. In terms of education, you probably can see, like, for example, the number of school years, the quality in the teachers, the pupil-teacher ratio, vocational training, the quality of training, employment, accessibility to employment, and most importantly, the digital skill. Whether we have adopted digital skill enough as early as young age of children, not only in the workforce. All this point to strengthening the human capital development. If you compare education, for example, we have actually relatively good education system, just that we probably have to revise to catch up, to be on par with what is happening in the world today. What are the new skills? What are the new development in terms of the fourth industrial revolution? What should we put in the curriculum to catch up with what the demand is, from the workforce? This is not only unique in Malaysia. Take, for example, India. Knowing that we probably have Indian audience today.
Yes, we have.
India has a population of, based on 2019-2020, close to 1.4 billion people, 1.3 plus billion people, I think. If you look into the population in India, they have a lot of graduates, right? But they still suffer of shortage of well-qualified graduates. What does it mean? After you graduate, can you find a job that is useful? Can you find a job that matches your skill? Now, if you look into the well-qualified graduates population in India, even though they have got very close to, let's say, China, they have got about 1.39 billion people in the same year. So if you look into these two countries, the population is quite on par. But if you compare to China, let's say, for example, the population of adults who can read, the literacy level, the graduate level, the well-qualified graduates, China has got higher percentage. The China percentage is about 96%. Right? It's high. Now, this gap in the well-qualified graduates is a problem. Right? If you look into Malaysia, well, same thing. We are facing the same problem. You probably have heard people saying, I can't find a job. 6 months after I've graduated. I've spent so many years investment. I've got a master's degree. I can't find a job. I was just looking into the social media today. There's a renowned graduate from a German university. This individual applied the jobs, as many as 800. He was turned down, all 800 of them. What does it say? Nowadays, especially in pandemic, people are careful in trying to see job match. But there are still enterprises who are letting go of people easily. Right? So you can see this is a problem. If you look into those indicators, it's not very uplifting. But I tend to believe human capital development, there are other indicators, there are other factors. For example, you can see on the page over here, the other indicators are very on par with what we need. Right? Like the openness, attitude, the recognition level, the technological innovation, creativity, innovation. If you look into the Asia economy, right? The Asia, the few tiger economies, Singapore, Hong Kong, Korean, others, they have people who focus into these areas. Yeah, that's why you see the human capital index ranking, they pay high because they pay attention in the right area. Let's look into the baseline of Malaysia performance in the World Competitiveness Yearbook, because in this comparison, there are a lot of indicators that IMD is looking at in health and education. All these are in the effort of developing human capital, right? So I've also listed the rankings of Malaysia in 2020 in 63 countries, you can see. We are pretty much below average in most of the indicators. So without going into the details, you probably can check out the other presentations. This is not encouraging, right? So to look into what we do today in Malaysia, we all know that we are waiting for the next Malaysia Plan. But if you look into the past Malaysia Plan, the 11th Malaysia Plan, which supposedly ended in 2020. These are the four different, what do you call, objectives of human capital development. This is part of the 11th Malaysia Plan, improving labor market efficiency, transforming the TVET. TVET is a big area of human capital development in Malaysia, technical, vocational, education and training. We rely a lot on using TVET capacities to train our human, right, in meeting the industrial demand. Right? So in the 11th Malaysia Plan, there are a list of reform that we need for TVET, right, to be on par with international standard. Other things like lifelong learning for skills enhancement, quality of education. Right? So you can see the different areas of focus in the 11th Malaysia Plan, the human capital development. We actually have organizations put into championing the development in Malaysia, Right, for example, to drive the development in Malaysia, our government has set up, National Human Capital Development Council. Right? This is responsible to drive the development of human capital based on policy revision, together with representative from industries. This is a bit like economic council, but it's looking into human capital. Yeah, and before this, we had National Institute of Human Resource, right? But they were upgraded. They were upgraded to Institute of Labor Market Information Analysis, right, to help us collect data, to help us share information, so that we'll know how we progress throughout the year. So this is under the Ministry of Human Resources. So they are put into championing this development. So we know the 12th Malaysia Plan is going to be tabled in March. So we hope they will continue looking into the human development in Malaysia, knowing that in 2020, we are probably lagged a bit by the pandemic. I've yet to see what the target achievement are like for the different indicators. One of which is the educational blueprint. Right? So this is still in effect. Right? According to the 11th Malaysia Plan, there are 6 shift focus or 10 shifts according to this chart. Right? So you can read for yourself. We still need to move ahead to see whether we have met the goals that we set during the 11th Malaysia Plan before we look into moving forward to see how we should revise the curricula of the education. These are the selected outcomes based on the 11th Malaysia Plan, surrounding the human capital development. So again, this you can probably check out more from the blueprints. Okay. Just a bit of snapshots into how much we are spending on education. Right? So you can see these are the percentage. It's getting lower by the year. So even in February, I've seen a cover story, based on our Malaysians, our opinion, that the education system is still inferior and it's hampered, and the human capital is not highly skilled yet. You can check out this article. These are the common sentiment of Malaysians about our education system here today. Those are education and skill. Let's talk about health. Now, the Ministry of Health, Malaysia, I think this is no stranger to Malaysians. We have a lot of initiatives. Right? So if you can look into the Ministry of Health initiatives because of the pandemic, we are looking into different areas of providing healthcare in the system. So I don't have to go through all these details, right? You can read about it. For example, the virtual health clinics that's been set up, that's been expanded to 35 sites around Malaysia, right? To make sure that we have proper social distancing. These are all effort in making sure our human capital are not going to be gone. Yeah. So in terms of health, you can even see from the key initiatives of the PM in the first 100 days, we are pouring a lot of aids and stimulus packages and pre-heartening packages to help, ease Malaysians across this hurdle because of the pandemic. Yeah. So these are all effort in the human capital maintenance, in the development maintenance, to try to get people to go through these hard times. The role of social enterprises, non-government organizations, they also play a part. You can see many of them contributed much to helping human capital. World Bank published 3 priorities. You can see the 3 priorities are very much in line about what we're currently doing. Children ready for school, yeah. Early childhood education quality. These are all being emphasized, yeah, because there are studies that talk about early education, how it's linked to better development of the children, how the return is much higher compared to secondary, for example. So the quality of education system is important. It's accurately determined by the framework of our education curricula and assessment. So if you want to know more about the details of these priorities, you can read the human capital report published by World Bank. Priority number 2, nutrition. Yeah, so improve nutritional outcomes. Sorry. Just trying to move this out of my way. Okay. Children stunting, we talk about that. 1 in 5 Malaysians. Right? This is a problem. Right? So malnutrition in the child's early life is related to significant negative consequences later in the life. Because we all know a malnourished child may not be able to have the proper ability to grow. Right? So let alone developing the human capital. Right? So this starts from day 1. Priority number 3, protection from social welfare programs, especially the impact of the social welfare programs. I think this targets more to our B40 population because these are the population who are still fighting poverty. So the social welfare programs have much impact on this population. What are social protection programs? In Malaysia, a few of them are like the Civil Service Pension Scheme, EPF, TOCSO, right, LTAT, the Workers' Compensation Scheme. All these are social welfare programs. Right? The current social protection program in Malaysia, according to the World Bank, should be expanded, reformed, integrated into the mixture of mandates and incentives. Yeah? So to help, especially the lower income household to invest in human capital. Right? So these are all in line with the early childhood, the preschool time, how we should pay attention to starting things right. Okay. Let's move to WEF, the GCR recommendations. Okay. So there are quite a few of the recommendations that are packed in 3 timelines. Okay. So I talk about these timelines from restraint to recovery to transformation. So these are more details. So I'm going to go through them rather quickly because of time. Yeah. Talent shortages. This already happened before the pandemic, right? So this is declining even before the pandemic hits. So we have seen in opinion score survey, business executives are complaining. They find it difficult to import talent. this ability to find talent dropped even before pandemic. Right? Dropped by as much as you can see, perhaps 15%, 17%, right? In the advanced economy. I'm sure in developing economies in Malaysia, we probably face even more percentage. Why? Well, you just look into how Malaysians are leaving Malaysia. If I ask a question, do you know where is the biggest of Malaysians diaspora, Malaysians immigrants? Which country does Malaysians go to? The highest, the largest diaspora in the world. Do you know that? Singapore. Singapore. Singapore is where Malaysian, has gone to, right? Nowadays, if you look into the statistics, just a year ago, in Singapore, there are close to 1 million Malaysians staying there, contributing to their economy. These are Malaysians, either citizens or PR or just on work permits. They are contributing to their economy. So Singapore is not even 6 million. If you look into the proportion of population, about 1/5 is Malaysians contributing, helping Singapore growing their economy. Not only that, every day there are around 350,000 Malaysians commuting from Johor to Singapore every day. Think about it. Can we still find talent in Malaysia? Hard, because they are all fleeing Malaysia. So you can see the shortages trend in different economies. Bear in mind, these are comparing 37 economies, right? Malaysia is not in it. So like what I talked about in the morning, WEF comparison is on the advanced economies and emerging economies. So even that, you can see the ease of finding talent is not improving at all. Okay. The other one is shortfall in digital skill. We all know that we need to adopt new technologies globally. Yeah? If we cannot find talent, well, of course, we can't get enough digital skills, because digital skills are attached with the human. So let alone we are talking about the skills needed for the jobs tomorrow. Right? This is getting more serious as our populations are switching to remote working at home nowadays during pandemic. Yeah. And we need even more digital skill, because nowadays you and I, we have to work from home. We have to apply digital transaction, for example, e-commerce, even face-to-face. This lack of digital skill is not only getting in the way of the common software, but the distribution of ICT is wrong, right? Information, computer, and technology. You can see on the graph, these are OECD countries. At least 14% of all jobs are at high risk of automation. What does it mean? All these jobs are going to be gone tomorrow. Right? 32% of all jobs are at significant risk of automation. So if we combine high risk and significant risk, these are well above 40%. Above 40% of jobs will be gone tomorrow. So if we don't equip our human capital with digital skill, they will be replaced. Let alone development. Right? So the digital skill scores declined over the past 4 years. If you look into this report. Incentives for workers misaligned. Yeah? In developed countries like Malaysia, the pay that we give to workers are not connected to the overall productivity of workers nowadays because of technological adoption. Right? So this lead to increasing differences of wages between workers employed in different professions. Right? So from the survey, business executives, again, they find it difficult to promote, to develop talent, because people are relocating, people are leaving, people are hopping, instead of reskilling, instead of upskilling. So because of this, there's a drop in meritocracy. Meritocracy is referring to people getting success because of their abilities. And they get promoted, they get more pay, they get more power because of their ability. The level of meritocracy dropped because of people are not reskilling themselves enough. So I think during this pandemic time, it's more acute to call for governments to support both the business and people for them to transition to the newer environment. Health services lag. Yeah, so we look into the life expectancy jump, increased, but our health services are not enough. So the pandemic time actually makes us realize, the gap between the demand and supply of not only the health assets but health personnel is big. Right? It's big. According to the WHO estimates, the healthcare services in the high-income countries, they're going to be expected to drop by as much as 80,000 by the year 2030. This is in advanced high-income economies. Right? So if you look into our statistics, we probably will face more shortfall in time to come. So what are the short-term priorities according to the recommendations for human capital development? For the talent and digital skills shortages, we need upskilling. So upskilling, this is going to be common for people who are between jobs, for even people who are probably affected by the pandemic. Right? So they probably can think about reskilling, upskilling for jobs that are more relevant. For example, Singapore, France, the government there had provided workers with funded skills. That means they pay for the workers to go for training, provided they complete the whole training. Right? So they also introduced new technologies, trainings to support the workers' transition, to support the workers to meet their career plan, for example. Other countries like Denmark also is doing the same. The Ministry of Employment is also providing workers with higher pay during this difficult time, pursue upskilling. So this is something that we should also consider. Moving to new labor market opportunities, we need probably a more holistic labor market policies to support people to transition, especially where they are still being paid on leave, probably or near full pay when they're on leave. This is not going to be a long-term solution. Right? We probably have to look into other means of policy to support how people can be motivated to invest in reskilling, for them to motivate them to move into training, right? So that they can probably divert to other market opportunities. So government, what they can play is the policy changes, right, to motivate this transition for job creation, markets of tomorrow, and hopefully change the behavior of enterprises. Right? So if enterprises can have all these motivated incentives to retain their people instead of laying off, probably they will be taxed less if they keep the people and invest on the people on reskilling. Right? So this all can only be happening with revised policy changes. Expand health system. I think this we don't have to introduce a lot. We already are facing shortage, so we still have to continue to focus on expanding people capacity in the healthcare system. Now it's going through the vaccine period to find the right one to help the population. The long-term priorities driving transformation of economies. Right? So we have talked about the current situation, the revival stage. Let's move into the transformation. Education curriculum or curricula. This is something that we need to look at. If we need to transform the jobs of tomorrow, we have to work backwards. Right, to upgrade pivots, right, to upgrade educational system in schools, so they'll learn something that's relevant. Say, for example, what we're talking about today, the factors that will affect the human capital development. This should be taught in school, right? Government should think about how to have an integrated effort to link ministries, to look into all these indicators, and this should be taught in school. So instead of ministry driving their own indicators, working in silos, say for example, Ministry of Education looking into education, for example, Ministry of Human Resources looking into human resource, they should work together to see how to have a dashboard, to see what they do actually matters and help move needles of others. Okay? So the education should be including all this, so that when this population is leaving school and going to the workforce, they have the right knowledge to know what should be done, instead of having that gap in this area. So the innovation, creativity skill, critical thinking skill should be introduced. I know it's already part of the education system right now, but all these need to be constantly updated. Not because we need to prepare them for future employment, but because we need to prepare them to be socially just citizens. Yeah? So this is an ongoing exercise. Labor laws, this refers to utilization, having revised policies for accelerating adoptions of new technologies in all sectors, right? So we can have people to find it easy to work on an online platform, for example. We no longer are following the traditional economy, right? So we are now in a digital platform economy. So we are seeing how even before we move to this stage, the wages are already different, polarized. This connectivity between pay and productivity, eroding wages, for example. The digital platform is going to make it even more serious. Right? So we need to make sure people can have some kind of guarantee for basic living standard. Yeah? So the minimum wages policies, upskilling, in some countries like US are even talking about universal basic income program to make sure people can sustain through the life. So basically, we need new tools. We need new technologies to help workers adapt to this new norm. Right? So these labor laws need to be revised. The care system need to be, again, expanded. The three care systems, the elder care, the child care, and the health care. So this system needs to be revised to make sure that not only to offer societal benefits, but actually, if you think about it, it has another advantage, right? It can offer an additional area of employment, especially the so-called the newly revalued essential work, especially women, for example, who are currently performing most unpaid care work. Yeah, but if you talk about expanding the care system, we are creating jobs for these groups, right, to have essential work and get paid for it. Right? The other dimensions to this recommendation is to use technology to scale health and care. What we're talking about here is, again, to align ourselves with the fourth industrial revolution. Things like how we can include tracking device, we can include monitoring device, so that the elder care workers, they don't have to be at the patient's place for a long time. They can spend more time at home or elsewhere, because now there could be early alert systems for the elderlies. If there's any worsening conditions, they can be transmitted, through the alert system to the health elder care workers. If you think about the Internet of Things, right? How you can monitor your elder patients about their conditions through internet. You can help them through internet, for the non-critical or serious conditions. Yeah, so this is using technology, innovative way for healthcare people to open up possibility for more value-added jobs, higher pay jobs, higher quality jobs. So in short, I've just shown you the recommendations from the WEF for the 3 timeline. So you can go through them on your own, but I hope you have a good understanding of what our priorities are, during this time of human capital development. And we always are talking about to start things early, right? So if you think about your own children, I know we're all parents, you should invest when they are young, how you should shape the way they care for the world tomorrow. So we should shape their thinking, we should shape their ability starting from young. So again, if you look into the World Bank recommendations, the WEF recommendations, these are very much in line. So it's like grooming people from young, schooling, to joining the workforce and beyond, all the way in the life expectancy between as much as we can. Even though different economies are measuring the upper limit of age to 65 or 75. But again, Singapore, for example, they are encouraging people to work beyond their retirement age. And we're delaying our retirement age because we want to expand the usable life to contribute to economic growth. So I hope this is useful to you. Before I end it, I just want to show you a final thoughts. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time today. So I know we've been talking about this development for a long time and probably been affected by the pandemic. But again, it's never too late. Right? So if you can't have the best time, let's go for the second best time.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mr. Lawrence.
Right.
I think we have some time for a few questions.
Let's do that.
I read one question from the floor. From Nurul Nur Aisha Hamran. So, do you foresee TVET remain as high demand market for the next 5-10 years? So,
TVET.
yes, TVET, I guess is technical and vocational education and training.
Yes, yes. Yes, the short answer is yes. I continue to see this as a high demand. Even in our 11th Malaysia Plan, we have a target to make sure our population, 25% of our population, to take advantage of the TVET program. And not only in Malaysia, if you look into Singapore, they are capitalizing on the TVET program to train their population. Right? So you can see from polytechnic to university, they have a route to go to TVET. Just like Malaysian, we have this TVET route to make sure the vocational training, technology training are in place. They are on par with international standard to make sure that people who are trained can contribute to the workforce. So yes, I do foresee that this is going to be increased, and this is going to be continually being invested, and this is going to be continually pushed by perhaps MOHE, perhaps by the Human Resource Council.
So your opinion. So how does Malaysian TVET do comparing to countries like Singapore, Hong Kong?
Oh, the Malaysia TVET, how do we do?
Yeah.
I think we still have room to improve.
Okay.
The facilities in TVET, I think we can improve that. The curricula in TVET, I think we can improve that. The technologies and the setup and the digitalization, I think TVET also are in the scope of upgrading, so that we can continually provide the latest and the neatest toys to our people. Yeah. The TVET program during the 10th Malaysia Plan, if I remember correctly, during the 10th Malaysia Plan, we already introduced the dual training system, the National Dual Training System, NDTS, that provides industry-oriented workplace training. That means they are trying to bring people up to speed to what is happening in the workforce early. Right? So around that time, the 10th Malaysia Plan, if I remember correctly, it's more than 50,000 people who are benefited from that dual training system under the TVET initiative. So in the 11th Malaysia Plan, they up the target percentage to penetrate to more Malaysians to take advantage. So yes, I think based on that trend, I see we will continually target that area because TVET is a useful channel for us to bridge the gap for people who are trying to get skills, especially hands-on skill um, to, um, to serve the workforce.
Thank you. So, your opinion, what are the big challenges in human capital development?
Oh, where do we start? A lot of challenges. I'll just give you some idea.
Okay.
If you look into let's say early childhood, yeah, we need to take care of the children. Let's look into the M40 groups, right? M40 groups, they already have problems trying to find, for example, childcare services, right? If they want to take care of the children, well, now we have mom and daddy trying to work double income because to support the family economy, you need to have 2% working. So mothers are already trying to find time to work. How can they take care of the children? Now, to take care of the children, they have to find childcare.
Yeah.
Can they afford childcare? That's one question. The second question is that, are the childcare quality on par with what our national standard is? We don't know.
We don't know.
So I think if I recall the recent article of our childcare service, we are trying to increase the childcare centers around Malaysia. We don't have enough.
Yeah.
Right. So if you think about that, there's one problem. So if you don't have childcare, how do you find people to take care of the child? And if you need to have people to contribute to the economy, contribute to household expenditure, you need people to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. That's one. People going to school. Do you have student care? Now Singapore is doing it right this time because they have government funded student care, daycare near the schools. Unlike Malaysia, most of the childcare and student care are near or situated within government buildings. They are not near the institutions, educational institutions. People find it difficult to send, that's one. Two, they can't afford to pay. These are challenges to talk into the ground. We are now on the ground. Now, there's just the early part in life. If you think about education, if you think about the percentage of our students' registration in school, staying in school, learning in school, all these are challenges. We have not moved to adulthood.
Yeah. It's just the from the childhood, not yet in the adulthood, right?
No.
So many challenges.
A lot of challenges. Even for childcare alone, I think we can talk for hours.
Yeah.
We can talk for hours. I know in Malaysia, Penjana, Penjana, National Economic Recovery Plan, they introduced childcare aids to encourage childcare centers to adopt the new norm, adopt the new SOP. They are giving grant, for example, one-off grant 5,000.
But it's one-off.
It's one-off. You're right. But this childcare has to be registered with the Ministry of Women, Family and Community. So again, the amount of childcare who can get funded by the government, even one-off, they are not a lot.
Yes.
They are not a lot. And
There's a lot of room to improvement.
A lot of room improvement. And we're talking about what? We're talking about this 5,000 going to around 8,000 centers. 8,000 centers who are funded. How about the rest who are not funded? They have problems. They have problems to take care of the children. Challenges.
Yeah. Okay. Last
This is
question.
probably the biggest in what we are discussing.
Yeah, just only the child.
Yes.
So next question. The last one, I think.
Okay.
So from Ray, I'm sorry if I mistake saying your name, Reynilo Legaspo. What is the state of human capital in the world today? What is the state of human capital in the world today?
What is the state?
I mean the state of
So
human. What I mean maybe asking what is the level of human capital today? How does the human capital work today?
I'm still trying to understand that question. The word state.
State, yeah.
Does uh, does does he mean uh, the level of human capital level in the world,
Yes,
or
I
does
think so.
he mean? If I look into the human capital level,
Oh, uh, Mr. Lord, Mr. Lord is happening again. Luckily, okay.
no, okay. So what I'm saying is that everyone is facing the same issue, the reduction of human capital. They have to continually, developing more because of the pandemic. In some countries, they are still losing many people a day.
Hmm.
So if you look at the state of human capital, I think first of all, let's look into the state of the health of people in the world today. It's saddening to know that we are going through some kind of reset. There's some big reduction in the human capital, and we have to regrow. This time I'm trying to use the analogy of a tree. It takes a long time to grow a tree. So imagine we have an earthquake wipe out all the forest. It's the state of the world today. How do you rebuild the forest?
Yeah.
You have to start from one tree at a time.
Mm-mm.
Not an easy task.
So it comes back to the challenges of practicing human capital, right?
Yes,
Yes.
yes. I figure this 1 hour is very short for
Yeah, I
a
think
big
if you want
topic
to
like
talk,
this.
I think we cannot finish in one day, I think, for this topic only.
No, we probably have to break it into stages.
Yeah,
To talk about the different phases of human capital development.
yeah, yeah.
Um, because
So,
certainly there are many ministries who are involved, who are accountable for human capital development, not just education.
yeah,
Even
that is another question, Mr. Lawrence.
yes,
So who should champion the human capital?
right question. I like the question. I like the question. Who should champion? We need someone to champion. I mean, fortunately for Malaysia, um, according to the 11th Malaysia Plan, we already have a champion. The champion is the National Human Resource Council.
Okay.
Under this council, there are many other stakeholders. There are many stakeholders to make sure that the initiative is met. Yeah. So the stakeholders are like, for example, the private sector players, because you cannot have all public, you need to have private involvement as well. Industry representative. Yeah. The council is working with the federal departments, for example, the social sector stakeholders. One party accountable. I already have that. The NHCDC, National
Okay.
Human Capital Development Council. So I hope in the next Malaysia Plan, they will still be continually championing the human capital development.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lawrence.
Thank you.
We don't have enough time to talk about this anymore.
Okay.
So any last word? Last word from you before I end this session?
Um, well, last word. Okay. I hope people will have more appreciation of the challenges in human capital development. Um, It's like this diploma is like an egg. Yeah, but it is broken by the inside force, life begins. Now we need a lot of lives, not starting from fertility rates. This, I think, is very much the same as our government to try to help push this development to be accelerated. Okay? So we need to internalize this force, right? We need to have this begin internally. So great things always begin from the inside.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lawrence.
Thank you.
So again, I would like to remind all of you to fill in the form to get the certificate, which is provided in the chat box. And lastly, all of you here, MPC will register all the attendees as a UPC, members in UPC portals from MPC. So let me tell you a little bit about UPC. The government has established a unified public consultation UPC portal to facilitate stakeholders' engagement in its rule-making process. So UPC provides members of the public easy access to regulatory consultation through a single website. UPC also contribute in achieving in government commitment to accountability, transparency, and inclusiveness. So as you can see, you can log in the portal using your email address that you registered for this webinar session. So the password will be password PASSWORD, password PASSWORD. And I hope this portal benefits you. So we will end the webinar session for today. And then for the next session, you can see all the information in the MPC portal. So any date for next session, Mr. Lawrence?
I do not have a confirmed date yet, but I'm sure MPC will probably communicate early, if there's any firm dates on the subsequent webinar series. I hope people will like it because there are still quite a lot of topics to cover.
Yeah, there's a lot of topics to cover and lots of this to fulfill.
Yes.
So, thank you everyone.
Thank you, people. Thank you for your time.
You again. Hope to see you all again. So,
stay safe. Stay safe. To help us maintain our human capital and develop our human capital. So until next time, all the human capitals, stay safe.
Stay at home. Hashtag Malaysia productive. The world is productive.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. See you again. Bye bye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, people.